we want our students to think about the wider context, regardless of what kind of design they're doing.
It's a great pleasure for me to participate in this seminar, and I will focus my comments on the development of Swedish fashion and the increasing export potential of this sector.
This is an open mind session because we come with different experiences, different backgrounds, and we meet, and the idea is to sort of change design knowledge and be very open with it.
Research in 1991 showed that the second most polluting industry in the world was fashion and textiles, second only to the chemical industry. So it's obviously a much bigger, more complicated mountain to climb.
We do feel that there is a great role that consumer responsibility plays in creating a more sustainable fashion system.
Fashion specifically cannot survive if it doesn't adapt to intelligent design.
And just finding the right way of presenting it and making it fun and interesting and like something that people want to actually know about and read. I think it can make people more aware, and it's also like a modern way of communicating.
Sustainability in itself has become such a niche market. It would be harder to say, let's teach that solely or bring that part of the actual curriculum, because a lot of designers are maybe want to be, menswear, or they want to do sportswear.
Personal style versus fashion, and how do we empower people to sort of embrace their personal style. And
if there could be a change in the public consciousness and how industry might respond to this, as industries seem so powerful, and the big ones especially.
Final solution was a visual map for a model for change, which was in effect a spider web of collaboration, in the center being values, and also having consumers and designers factoring into the interplay of how consumers were educated and designers were educated on a sustainable model.
So the definition was so vague and so inclusive that it made us realize that perhaps in Sweden you don't want to rock the boat by defining too exactly what Swedish fashion is. But the first thing that popped to my mind was Swedish fashion is cool, it's great, it's minimal, it's well designed. It has that truth to materials, that truth to design, that truth to form and function.
We need to change things. We need to bring back tradition, to put it in a set where it's adapted to social, actual, and contemporary demands. We need designers that are analytical, that are critical, that are aware of what is going on outside.
The goal is supposed to be not even talking about sustainable fashion as something that needs to be talked about, but actually just being made.
First of all, do we try and make sustainability cheaper? Do we try and join those two, or is there a place for both of those in the marketplace, something quick and cheap, and then something more expensive that's longer lasting? How much of a fight do we, wage? Is it a battle?
In fast fashion, there could be a sort of infusing of some of the values from slow fashion and incorporating them into the production and the consumption, I guess, of faster, more fashionable stuff.
Is it automatically better what is produced in developing countries, or can we create or educate our own taste to be more sort of inclusive and change the attention that people have on these type of quality goods, and how can it sort of feed back and create more strategic, think more sort of ecologically?
So that there's a more individualized approach to definition by using fashion rather than being just purely a consumer.
It's very good to put a label in the clothes and just tell the customer, I can be a pillow or I can be a new item.
Brands should have the responsibility of making sure that their products are sustainable from the get-go, and that would then lead the marketplace, and things would pick up a little bit more quickly, especially in the supply chain.
Because it's more on the brand's end to really tell their story, and it is for the consumer to actually vet that that data is accurate.
How to incorporate quick trends and fast fashion within sustainable design. And so the topic sort of launched from there, and we started looking at different business models that weren't necessarily adapted by big brands.
What if we had a QR code in the back of the label, as you would with food when you're buying it, and that would encourage a direct conversation between the ultimate, the end consumer and the label.
Sort of slowing down this process is celebrating quality, individuality, so that people really take the time to think about what they're wearing and what their personal style is, so that they don't want to change it every season, or they have longevity. They take care when they buy a piece, they buy it because of the quality.
Slow food and how much progress the sustainable food movement has made, and whether or not we could make sustainable fashion go in that direction. And we really like this idea of piggybacking on what sustainable food has done and what slow food has done, and seeing if we could do that for slow fashion.
Maybe this old business model is obsolete. Could we find another way to add to the core business?
How we can inspire each other not to buy any clothes. Maybe in a whole year you are able to receive clothes from friends and other gifts that you can borrow and you can swap, but not buying.
And consumers are really pressuring and pushing from a cultural point of view in new ways that also affects us. Of course, the press and anybody around talking about it influences everybody, and it's hard to, I think, really define who is doing what. They're all very interlinked.
We will need to look closely at the reactions of our consumers on a local level. It's no longer sustainable to roll out the same concept in every country. It's also no longer sustainable to just assume that your consumers know about your operations. We need to be more transparent.
So if brands respond to the consumer and begin to make more ethical garments, then the consumer will have less responsibility, because they know that they'll be able to go out and buy an ethical garment without having to think too much about it.
If design is to play a more intelligent role, we have to expand the definition of design.
We are interacting in the most exciting way, I think.
Consumers around the globe are becoming more and more attuned to environmental concerns.
It doesn't necessarily mean that consumers always understand the significance of intelligent design decisions.
We have 10 design strategies that we work with, 10 to 10, and here they are. I'm going to very briefly talk through them and then get on to some examples of how we're using them.
And we also have to
get to know people, and then use this fabric garment in need of mending as a sort of a probe that actually actualizes the community.
So it's not only the actual garment construction, the body, and the fit, but it also is where am I able to actually put an antenna?
I want to talk a lot about how we kind of take ideas and turn them into action and turn them into doing.
That we, in our small little way, can have any kind of effect of young women's ideas of what beauty is.
Is new fashion every week, which is actually not the truth.
Also having the production in Sweden and in Europe instead of in China.
What I'd like to talk to you about today is the Council for Textile Recycling.
Oro Verde Green Gold, which is artisanally and ethically mined in the Choco bioregion in Colombia.
I really did not believe that we would build this factory in the museum and have a real human being in there for the 3 months.